I am back. All right. So after preparing for the Sabbath coming up, I was cleaning and I was thinking, and I never actually talked about in the last video what I was planning on talking about. So I was listening to Dabu and he was talking about nuclear weapons and things like that, and I don't know what that stuff is. I'm not really going to get into that. On that end, I'm only going to talk about what they're promoting it as in these media, movies and TV and things like that. Crow 777 did a video on how it's a hoax. You can listen to his stuff. He has reasons, and they're interesting. And also mentioned this other video about Madame Curie being related to Mercury. It's not just that they sound the same, it gets much more in depth. So that's really interesting. And I'll leave those links below if you want to check them out. But what I wanted to talk about is how nuclear weapons, the energy seems to come from them pulling things apart. Supposedly, it's the splitting of large atoms, such as uranium or plutonium, into smaller atoms. And so it's just reminding me about atom being split, the atom being split. Eve came out of Adam, like an atom gets split. They want to split us up. They want us to be divided. And, in so many more ways. Now, I say they want us to be divided, and people might think, oh, Republican and Democrat. It's so much more than that. It's so much more. They want to split up the families. They don't want somebody to have a mother and a father in a home that's actually tight. They don't want that. And also, they do split personalities. MK Ultra was all about using trauma-based mind control to split people's personalities. And I believe that something similar to that was what 9/11 was all about, such as being a witchcraft ritual that would sever people from reality as we know it maybe today. We might even know it even better today than we did previously when we were growing up, because they've been trying to control us, control our minds, to guide us to see what they want us to see. And that went through schooling and, history classes, all this stuff that gave us a bunch of knowledge that isn't really true. Of course, movies and TV and music does all that too. So, nuclear weapon is supposedly the energy is caused from them splitting things up. They get spiritual energy by splitting things up. And the Open Scroll has a channel on YouTube. I'm not sure what the channel is. I'll get it. I'll leave the link below. He also has a website, so I'll leave that. His videos on YouTube are often cut because he uses, scenes from the movie to describe what's actually going on that he's talking about. And it's worthwhile to watch them on his actual webpage, because he'll put in all the clips there that you couldn't see on YouTube. So I found that really interesting what he does. He's decoded a lot of stuff like Back to the Future. It's interesting, but it's related to sodomy, a lot of it. And there's a reason that's like his speciality, where Father wants him to be looking at, because that's what he can see. And, I have my thing, he has his thing, and I'm not going to get into that too much here. I will mention just a couple things in Back to the Future. You have Emmett Brown, and he says, emit brown, such as brown poo. Where would you emit that? Well, when you go on potty. And Emmett Brown is, there next to the TV while Howdy Doody is on. Now, Howdy Doody is poo. Once again, there's so many different things that he brings up, and it's like, wow, he says, Great Scott at the same time. Scott toilet paper. So you've got 3 different mentions in the same period, and it's like, wow, you can't really make this stuff up. Seems to be there. So anyway, he talks about how they want to traumatize people, usually young children, by sodomizing them at a very young age. And I think he mentioned that it was like they want to sodomize God. And the best way to do that is to sodomize a child, because when a child is brought into this world, it's put together. You've got the male and the female, the sperm and the egg, put together. You've got a child in the image of our Father. And what they want to do is, as soon as the child is born, split it up. This ritual sodomy will split the personality. This mind control that they put us under as we're, growing up, it's to split us up, to take away the wisdom that was once in us, to keep us blind. And so that's where they feel like they get their spiritual energy or whatever from, is the splitting of the person's personality. What was called multiple personality disorder is called dissociative identity disorder today. That's what happens in trauma-based mind control. And they're not just doing it through sodomy, they're doing it through multiple levels. That's where they're getting their energy from. Now, as I mentioned, when the male and the female come together and create a baby, there's actually a spark. I'll leave the link below. I wish that my recorder was working, because I would just show this on the screen, but I can't do that right now. But there's a bright flash of light that supposedly marks the incredible moment where life begins, when sperm meets the egg. And it says it's zinc radiating. I have no idea about the importance of the word zinc here for this, but I'm sure there is. And so when they come together, there's an electrical sort of, thing that's shown. Started playing, sorry. So what I'm thinking is also the fission. We often hear about fission. Nuclear power is what they use for the most part, which is the splitting them up. But fusion, combining two small atoms such as hydrogen or helium, is supposed to produce heavier atoms and energy. More energy when you put them together. When the bride of Christ and Christ come together, it's going to create more energy. And I think this is why there's so much push about nuclear stuff going on with World War III. Now, I don't really know what the deal is. So Dabu had posted a video on Australia is going to stand with the United States if North Korea attacks us. I'm not saying North Korea is going to attack us, but they may do a false flag or whatever to make it seem like we got attacked with a nuclear bomb in order to start a nuclear war. We've all grown up, I think, sort of hearing about nuclear war, and I kept thinking, like, the rest of the world wars were not nuclear, but they certainly did promote this nuclear war coming up. So it's kind of like, when we're watching TV and movies and stuff like that, they always show, like, war games, all these nuclear things, and, it says the winning move is to not play. Well, we've been growing up with this programming that there will be a nuclear war, and that, in some ways, some movies will say that the aliens come to kind of stop that we're destroying ourselves with nuclear stuff, and they're going to stop it. Like an antichrist figure. I don't know if they're going to use aliens or if they're just going to use some person so that nobody thinks, oh, that's the antichrist, because it's not an alien. With aliens or demons, of course. If you watch my channel, hopefully you aren't just randomly popping out of this video. Because you should see the rest of the God and His Wisdom playlist, and the Golden Compass stuff, because otherwise you're not really going to know what I'm talking about, where I'm coming from. Okay, so when we come together, the bride of Christ and Christ come together, then it creates a baby. Now, I don't know what this baby is, spiritual, what it is. But we have, in Revelation 12, the woman, the sign of the woman, who's supposed to be giving birth. And I talked about in another video about how it seems like it's going to be twins, or that there would be two babies. The first one is going to be the Antichrist, and the second one is going to be the true Christ. I don't know how this is going to play out, but the scriptures are always talking about how the first one is going to be the evil or lesser, and the second one is always going to be the greater or better, such as Esau and Jacob. Esau came first, Jacob came second. So I've talked about that in previous videos. I'm just trying to remember if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. I just think that there's going to be some sort of energy when we come together as one. In the time of Acts, they were together as one. And I believe that he came back at that time. So, I don't really know what that means for now about him coming back a second time. I don't know how it's going to play out. I really don't. So I'm kind of at a loss for that. So don't, listen to me on that. But I was just thinking that there's a reason they're talking about nuclear stuff now. And they are trying to split us up. The best thing to do is to come together rather than being split up. And what the Antichrist is going to be doing is splitting people up. He's going to be trying to put Christians against Christians, try to tell them to call the other Christian a heretic and to split them up that way. Because they'll say, you aren't one of us because you believe this false doctrine, and rather than, hey, we both believe in the Messiah, they want people split up. They don't want them together. They want minds split up. They want them to be fractured, It's interesting, fractured fairy tales coming to my mind. I talked about Chris talked about the Isabella connection with fairy tales a little bit with Cinderella. It's representative of us with the bride and the groom coming together at the stroke of midnight, like Cinderella and stuff like that. She lost her shoe like we lost our wisdom, and he's bringing it back to us. And they're trying to fracture fairy tales. They're trying to fracture us up. They're trying to split us up. And what we're supposed to be doing is coming together. And I'm saying this over and over again, but that's really the main point that I want to get across. And it is connected to this mind control, trauma-based mind control. And what they might do with a false flag, if it was like 9/11, is more mind control. People would be trauma-based mind control. They'd be traumatized and they'd be split up even more. And it gives them energy to split people up, but there's more energy in coming together. So that's what we're supposed to be trying to do. And I think I'm going to end this here because I can't really think of anything else. I want to talk about except one more thing. Dabu mentioned one video about a nuclear attack, not nuclear attack, some sort of hacker program was looking at a nuclear site in Kansas. And once again, Kansas brings up the whole tornado with going over the rainbow. Like that's where a vortex would be. And I had a dream that the Christians, or whatever, the believers, as I don't even call myself a Christian anymore, the followers of YHWH were gathered together in Kansas and Nebraska. I'm not saying anything is going to happen in Kansas and Nebraska, and I'm not going to go there. It's spiritual, I believe it's something. But, then I thought, wow, what if they pulled off a false flag in some state like Kansas or Nebraska, and they said there was a nuclear attack, and it was so devastated, and there was no radio signals or anything coming out of the city or the state. And they just told people to stay away, completely stay away. And those who were following our Father were led to go there. I just thought that was interesting because in the stand, they're led to go to Nebraska. And in my dream, it was Nebraska and Kansas. And like I said, Kansas is related to the tornado going over the rainbow. The whole changing dimensions is there. And Nebraska was related to the stand, where they were all led in their dreams to go there. They didn't know what was happening, but they were led in their dreams to go there by an old woman. There was also another side in the stand where they were led to go to Las Vegas. Like the evil side was in Las Vegas, the good side was in Nebraska. And in Las Vegas, I think there was even a nuclear attack at the end. They might have tried to do like a nuclear attack. Interesting. Las Vegas, you've got the Hoover Dam, which is connected with the Transformers and other things, but it was heavily connected with the Transformers, and we've got lots of water breaking symbolism there, like Fool's Russian with the Isabella character. Um, so I just thought that was interesting because in movies they would put the bad one there and they'd put the good one here, but it would be split up different. Um, but that's a whole other thing about people being called in their dream to go to a place um, that they can trust themselves, trust that their father is guiding them. And you got the father of Satan, the father of us instead. Those born of our Elohim would go to the safe place, and those born of the devil might go to another place. And it's all there's also got stuff in The Walking Dead where they feel like they're led to go to a certain place, and it was Terminus, the end. Um, I'm not going to get into that too much, but there's a lot of symbolism of people just sort of being drawn in the apocalypse type timing to go to a certain place. So I just thought that was interesting. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I have no clue. I really don't. I just thought it was interesting that the stuff about nuclear weapons is really being ramped up. I've talked about it previously, um, in other videos. So I'll leave some links below if you want to check those out. Thanks for listening, and Shabbat Shalom.